Hey everyone, welcome to Area 616. Yesterday, Season 2 of Iron Fist finally arrived on Netflix, and despite the fact that Season 1 was kind of terrible, I was really excited about this one. I'm a huge fan of Iron Fist comics, and I really love all of Kunlun's lore, and I think there's so much potential for this character. So when it started looking like Season 2 could be fixing all of the terrible choices Scott Buck has made with Season 1, I was excited to see one of my favorite characters finally done justice in live action. And I'm happy to report that for the most part I was not disappointed. This video will have two parts to it, the spoiler-free review for those who haven't finished it yet, and the spoilers discussion for those who have. Here's the time code to the spoiler section. But before I talk about Season 2, I feel like I should elaborate on my thoughts on Season 1. I personally found the story uninteresting. The acting and character work on Danny Rand in particular was downright awful. The action was bad, the pace was incredibly slow and incredibly boring. The Hand was just flat out awful, some of the worst villains Marvel's ever had, and while it did occasionally have some cool scenes, it was pretty rare. But I'm happy to say that Iron Fist Season 2 is an astronomical improvement on Season 1 in almost every way. Now, does that mean it's top-notch Marvel TV? Well, I'll get to that. The story this season mostly centers around a war brewing between the Hatchet and Golden Tiger gangs in Chinatown, with Iron Fist caught in the middle trying to keep the peace. All the while, Joy and Davos have nefarious plans for Danny Rand. For the most part, the story is pretty enjoyable, if perhaps a little predictable. No spoilers, but I'd say that by about episode 4, you'll know exactly where everything is going. There are some specific details you won't see coming. I'll get to those in the spoilers section, but you'll know where the general story is headed. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means that overall, there aren't many twists and turns along the way. Probably the best thing this season is the action. It's incredible. Clayton Barber, this season's fight coordinator, is a master of his profession. It's on the same level of quality as Daredevil, but it feels different. It's still brutal, but there's also something elegant about a lot of the movements, which is exactly what Kung Fu should feel like. I've read that Finn Jones didn't have a stunt double for this season, and did everything himself, and if that's true, major props to this guy. I always said that I felt like he would be a great Iron Fist given time to train, and I was right. He went from looking like he couldn't do more than basic yoga to completely selling some pretty fierce fight scenes. As for Danny Rand himself, he's actually relatable and likable. He's got that same kind of chill feel that he had in Luke Cage Season 2, which makes him stand out from the rest of the Defenders who can tend to be a bit tense. Now that they've removed the Hand and all of the I'm the Immortal Iron Fists from the equation, you can see that he's really just a guy who went through a horrible thing and has been trying to find a direction in life since then. And they do some pretty interesting things with that. One of my biggest interests about this season was how they would handle a lot of the issues surrounding how much Scott Buck messed up Danny. Because Buck did it to such an extent that Danny was actually in the wrong. When Davos talks about how he abandoned Kunlun and how its disappearance is his fault, Davos is 100% right. Danny Rand went to Kunlun, got their sacred power, and then just left with it because he wanted to. So I was curious to see how they could possibly handle this. Would they just ignore it or what? But they actually do explore it, and they go to some pretty interesting and surprising places with it. More on that in the spoilers discussion. The rest of the cast is pretty great too. Colleen is awesome this season. Jessica Henwick does a fantastic job on her action scenes and on handling some of the more emotional scenes of Colleen having to confront her past. Joy and Ward Meacham are both back, and they're both good here. Ward in particular. Misty Knight also shows up in some episodes. She has great chemistry with Colleen and has some cool moments of her own. In the villain's corner, I enjoyed Davos a lot. He's got a tragic backstory like all the others, and while I wouldn't say I felt it as much as I did for, say, Fisk or Kilgrave or Cottonmouth, he's still entertaining in his own right. His action scenes are really fantastic. He just feels like this deadly force of nature just ripping through his enemies with grace and ease. The conflict between Dany and Davos is also much more well done now, especially since they're willing to explore Dany's faults. But the real standout antagonist of this season for me was Typhoid Mary. She's basically nothing like the comics. Her backstory, her goals, motivations, etc., they're all completely different. She doesn't even look like Typhoid Mary, but they make her a compelling character in her own right. They do get the multiple personalities thing very, very right here, and Alice Eve does a great job portraying both sides of Mary Walker. This season was 10 episodes long instead of 13, which, as I hoped, helped a lot with the pacing. There's still some moments that are a bit slow, but I was invested through all 10 episodes and never felt bored, as opposed to the first season where I got bored within the first 15 minutes. Raven Metzner and the whole writing team have really done some great work here. This season is a huge improvement. It has much better action, drama, and a better story, but I wouldn't say it's perfect. This season sets up a lot of stuff for a third season, really cool stuff, to the point where season 3 ultimately seems more interesting than season 2. And that would have to be my biggest complaint, is that this season is, at times, a bit cookie cutter. There are a lot of things about Dany's time in Kunlun and his powers that could make for interesting additions to the show, but they rarely touch on that. It does look like Season 3 will in some pretty big ways, but Season 2 doesn't. But don't take this the wrong way, Iron Fist Season 2 was very entertaining, beginning to end, and left me craving more from this series and showrunner. I just hope Netflix gives us a third season of this. And Luke Cage, for that matter. Anybody else notice they've been strangely quiet there? Anyway, we are now entering the spoilers discussion. This is your warning. If you haven't watched all 10 episodes of Iron Fist Season 2, then I'd recommend putting this in your watch later until you have. The main thing I want to talk about here is the big twist at the end. The heroes are planning to incapacitate Davos and take the Iron Fist back from him, but Dany refuses to take it back, saying that Colleen should have it instead. After initially disagreeing, she ends up taking on the mantle of Iron Fist, while Dany leaves New York in search for answers about his destiny. I'm interested to see what kind of reaction this gets, because I could see a lot of hardcore fans really hating this. Me personally, I think it was a smart move on the writer's part. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many bad vibes around Dany's whole MCU story that there are times where I almost agreed with what Davos was saying. So giving Dany the chance to redefine himself like this was a great move. I mean, sure, he'll probably get the Iron Fist again if there is a Season 3. I mean, he is Danny Rand, after all. But now he'll have the chance to make us believe that he truly deserves it. There are a ton of really cool plot lines left open for Season 3 that I'm really excited to find out where they go next. There's of course Colleen becoming the new Iron Fist, which was awesome, but Misty also mentioned Luke's dark turn, saying that Colleen was now one of the few people who could actually stop Luke if needed. So this could be a tease for Luke Cage Season 3. At the end, Dany is in Japan with Ward, where they've been tracking down the person who sent the Iron Fist corpse to Davos. This person has turned out to be none other than Orson Randall, a previous Iron Fist. At the end, Dany has stolen his chi guns, and now Orson wants them back. Orson is an awesome character, and he's a great choice to pair up with Dany in Season 3, not just because he's a previous Iron Fist, but because he's also an outsider, and he also abandoned Kunlun. The only difference is Orson didn't go down a better path when he left like Dany did. So it would be a great character to mirror Dany with, and to help him find himself. Personally, I'd love to see Stephen Lang play Orson Randall in Season 3. But beyond that, in the season we also learned that Typhoid Mary has a secret third personality, like in the comics. In this season we met the timid and kind-hearted Mary, and the cold and ruthless Walker, but it turns out that there's another. When Mary was captured on a military mission in Sokovia, she somehow managed to escape, leaving a horrific bloodbath behind her. Mary thought that it was Walker who did it, and Walker thought that Mary convinced someone to let them out. That means that there is a third personality who is capable of incredible violence that neither of them knew about. Bloody Mary. I'm insanely excited to see this play out. I love Typhoid Mary as a character, and I think that even though she's very different in the show, they did her justice. With her being a gun for hire here, I think there's potential for her to appear in other series, not just Iron Fist. Obviously, I'd love to see her go up against Daredevil one day, but with her military background, it'd be awesome to see her paired up with the Punisher too. I also feel like Colleen's mother being in New York could lead to the introduction of the Nail. I believe her mother was a member in the comics, so that'd be cool to see in the show. Like, maybe they're a new gang coming into New York and taking over, using their extensive hand training to decimate the playing field. So, yeah, you can see what I mean when I say that Season 2 just felt overshadowed by the potential of Season 3, but it is very good nonetheless. I'm really excited to see more of Iron Fist now, and with how much better the season was, I'm sure Netflix will renew it. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what they do, but I really hope Netflix makes the right decision here. And hey, even if they do cancel it, maybe Marvel could move it over to Hulu. I mean, they'll own a larger share in it by next year, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. In any event, I'd love to know what you guys think of all of this. Did you like Iron Fist Season 2? What did you think of Colleen becoming Iron Fist? And what kind of stories would you like to see in Season 3 and beyond? Let me know all your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
I tried to break free from a terrible dream.